We're seeing this massive boom in AI systems that are designed specifically for emotional support. They're sold to us as this always-on, super scalable solution for mental wellness. Basically an AI you can talk to anytime, anywhere. And look, it sounds great on the surface, but what's really going on behind that friendly chat window?
And that promise is incredibly appealing, right? Especially if you're feeling a bit isolated. An AI companion that's just always there to listen, no questions asked. But as we start to lean on these systems more and more, this really crucial question pops up. Are we trading a genuine human connection for a convenient simulation? And what are the hidden dangers of making that trade?
So first, let's just dive right into the direct impact this stuff has on our own minds. The psychological risks here are subtle, but they're also pretty profound. And they all start with a tendency that is just, deeply human.
It all kicks off with something called anthropomorphism. Look, these AIs are designed from the ground up to sound human, to use empathetic language. And because our brains are literally wired to respond to that, we can't help but start treating the AI like it's a real person, giving it credit for real emotions and real intentions. The big problem? This can lead us to trust it way, way more than we should. And this really gets to the heart of the difference. Human support is a two-way street. It's reciprocal. There's a shared experience there. AI companionship, though, it's completely one-sided. It's a simulated emotion, perfectly tailored just for you. The real danger is emotional over-reliance, where we start to swap out the messy, complicated, but absolutely essential work of real human connection for this easy, frictionless AI interaction.
And the psychological traps, believe me, they don't stop there. The lines get so blurry. Is this thing a tool, or is it my friend? That's what we call boundary ambiguity. These systems can also subtly influence what you believe through just constant affirmation. And maybe most worrying, for someone in real distress, there's a serious risk they'll mistake the AI's generic responses for actual clinical guidance, which it is absolutely 100% not qualified to give.
Okay, so the psychological risks are pretty clear, but why do they happen? To really get that, we need to pop the hood and look at the technical side of things, at the flaws that are literally built into the machine itself.
So yeah, these systems have some pretty fundamental technical issues. For example, alignment gaps. That just means the AI's behavior can drift away from its main goal of being helpful. Your most sensitive private conversations, they could be leaked. The personalization can actually be too good, creating this echo chamber that just reinforces unhealthy thoughts. And as soon as you add a realistic voice to the mix, it can make the AI seem so much more authoritative and trustworthy than it actually is.
But maybe one of the biggest, weirdest technical problems is what people call hallucinations. This is when an AI just generates information that is completely false, but it presents it with total, unshakable confidence. Can you imagine pouring your heart out to a companion and it gives you life advice based on something it literally just made up on the spot? That is a massive, massive risk.
Okay, now let's zoom out. Because when you take all these individual risks and you multiply them by millions of users, well, you start to see these huge shifts happening in our society and in our culture. This chart lays out the power imbalance, and it's stark. Who controls your data? The company. Who sets all the rules? The company. Who gets to define the very nature of this relationship? Yep, again, the company. As the user, you have very, very little control in this whole dynamic, even when you're sharing your most vulnerable thoughts.
And this is the danger of what we call scaling effects. A single, tiny flaw in the AI's design, a small bias, a little security bug, it doesn't just affect one person. Nope, it is instantly pushed out to millions of users all at once, which creates the potential for harm on a truly massive scale.
So what happens to our human relationships when we start to outsource our emotional needs to a machine? I mean, whether we realize it or not, we are all part of this giant social experiment that is quietly rewriting our most basic rules around intimacy, vulnerability, and what it even means to truly connect with another person.
Which, of course, brings us to the final, and maybe the most difficult question of all. When these systems inevitably cause some kind of harm, who is held accountable?
Well, the problem is that accountability is completely spread out. It's diffused. Do you blame the AI model itself for being unpredictable? Or do you blame the company that built it and pushed it out, often without enough safeguards? Or does some of that responsibility fall on the user for putting their trust in it in the first place? The truth is, right now there are no clear answers.
And this is the core question we have to start asking, loud and clear. As we invite these AI companions into the most intimate parts of our lives,
We just can't forget what's lurking behind that friendly interface. It's a complex web of technical, psychological, and social risks. The convenience is obvious, sure, but the true cost, that's still being calculated. And figuring out who ultimately has to pay that cost is a challenge we haven't even begun to solve.